Good evening. Welcome to another episode of Pie Before Dinner. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Lou, your host, Talking Math with Dr. Lou. Listen, I'm excited today because we have a great episode of a longtime friend and colleague of mine, Dr. Pau Yu. Dr. Pau. When we were in college, together at Illinois State University. We were both working on our PhD in mathematics education. Paul, his last name was Yu, right? And mine was Lou. My first name was Lou. And Paul would just go, I would just go, you, and he would go, Lou. And here it is, a few years later, 1 or 2 years later, Paul.
Yeah, decades.
One or two decades. And it never, every time we say it to each other, we laugh. I just got a chuckle. I guess because it goes back to the days of Illinois State University.
Yeah.
Hey, listen,
Special
Paul.
days.
Yes. Hey, Paul, welcome to the show, man. I'm glad to have you. Listen, everyone, Paul is a professor of mathematics education at Grand Valley
State.
Where's Grand Valley State University? Paul, just help out the audience there.
So that's in West Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, the right hand. I tried the left hand. So I'll do the right hand. So this is Detroit area. It's over here. Chicago's down over here.
Okay.
Detroit's over here.
All right. So that's okay. Cool. So you've given us a placeholder. But look, Paul, I'm really excited, man. But it's so much to talk about. We want to get into the show. Math, art, and just us is what I've titled the show today. Because we like to spin and go all sorts of places. Today, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. If you're tuning in, thank you. I wanted to make a few quick announcements. This is our 15th show, our 15th episode. And I just want to take time to really thank you, the listening audience. Thank you, the viewing audience. This was a project, a love project, started during in the midst of the COVID pandemic and with everything happening with our Black Lives Matter movement. It was, a resource was needed, a reach out, a communication from our math community to the broader community and from the broader community to us, right? To expand how we were using mathematics in the space and talking about mathematics, but also talking and connecting with our community. And it's been such a tremendous experience. We've had some of our broadcasts have had thousands of views. I'm spinning that a bit, maybe 1,000 or so views, but typically hundreds of views we get each time we view. And people view live. They view this program not just live, but after in replay. We have people listening from Botswana. We've learned that they listen to it. Botswana, Paris, France, Haiti. So there are a few places. It's quite a global show, and we're so excited to take the voice of mathematics and the voice of the people, raising mathematics to the power of the people. So I'm glad for that, and I just give you guys a hand. Thank you very much for 15 great episodes. We'll do some more before we'll take a break this season, but I'm excited today. So Paul, just to start out, you and I were just talking backstage about something that I think will resonate with a lot of the audience here, and that is we were talking about going back to school. You're saying that your wife's a teacher, yes?
She is. She's a Spanish teacher.
Right. And we were talking about going back to school. And talk to me about what some of the fears are. What's your take on teachers going back to school? And there's a big push, I guess it is, to push teachers back into school, at the very least across the United States, and even other places as well.
Yeah, so it's crazy because it's become so political, right? And there are just so many unknowns. So on one hand, it makes sense that the idea of reopening and going to school is very regional. It's done by the state guidance, by communities. But on the other hand, to have some type of uniform, centralized message from the federal government could be helpful, right?
Yeah.
And so I feel like there's these mixed messages. I mean, when you have the president and the department, the Secretary of Education saying, hey, we want schools to open, and governors saying schools are going to open, they don't have to open, and then the districts, you have all these mixed messages. And it's really, really hard to just kind of decipher and see through the political discourse to attend to just trying to be a teacher. So it's very frustrating.
Yeah, no, it is. I have mixed feelings. I have mixed feelings about the whole thing. We send teachers into. We just have such such a trifling view of teachers, right? We have such a commodification view. Teachers are meant to really buoy up this economy, and sorry, let me get myself back on screen, and buoy up the space. We're asking teachers to do so much, right? I mean, we can't even get the copy of the work at the school I used to be at, right?
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I couldn't even guarantee you a photocopy, right?
Yeah.
And we're talking about guaranteeing the safety. I mean, this COVID-19 is a different experience because it's so highly contagious. We know that it has differential effects on children, right?
Right.
But even now, we're not social all the time.
Right.
I mean, but we know that it can be spread easily. And so, imagine someone asked me to sort out this math problem. You take 20 kids, they travel on a bus of 60 people, right?
Yeah.
60, they get off the bus, they go into a school, an assembly with 100 people, they into classrooms, 6 or 7 classrooms, and then they come home. And just imagine the multiplication effect of just carrying. Yeah. It's not just schools; it's the whole system, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, Paul. I think this is really, really. I think I'm seeing this escalate at this particular point in time. I think we have a real issue on our hands with teachers.
I think what makes the whole thing confusing is I see the whole global COVID experience as kind of this long, ongoing research experiment, right? So in May or in March, COVID hits, and everything shuts down, and that kind of becomes your starting point. And then it's like, okay, let's open up this business sector and see what happens, and let's see what opens this. And here, in like the end of April or May, Michigan actually got things under control, so we're doing pretty well here. But when Florida, Texas, and Arizona opened kind of more systemically, I was really reluctant to criticize because I was like, okay, let's see what happens, right?
Yeah.
Let's,
I think we were hoping for the best, right?
We were
hoping that we had reached the.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And here's what we learned. We learned in Florida, Arizona, and Texas that COVID can rip through young adults in terms of contagious, right? Because we didn't see that early on.
That's right.
We did learn that young adults aren't as susceptible to really serious illness and sickness, but we also learned that it's so contagious that it can overwhelm a hospital system.
That's right.
So now the next level of the experiment is, okay, what happens when we throw in millions of children in K-12 situation in schools in 2 months? Right? Who knows? And that's an experiment that there's too much uncertainty to go into, I think, the way they're approaching it.
Yeah, no. Thank you for sharing that. You're right. It's the unknown. It's the unknown.
Yeah.
What every day we're asking more questions, different questions, and more questions. When you're speaking, Paul, there's a major echo. My folks are saying when they're listening to it coming from your mic.
Oh, so they are here.
They're hearing the mic. I'm not hearing it. Are you hearing it still?
I am.
Okay, let's just take some time. You want to go mute something? Probably needs. Is any of your computers on where they're catching the feed and feeding back?
I'm gonna try something.
All right, and I'll keep talking if you. I'll keep talking. All right.
Okay. Is the echo there?
Yeah. Let me see. 1 second. Hi guys, can you still hear the echo?
Am I echoing?
Natalie, is he echoing?
Because I changed my mic.
All right, 1 second. Hi guys, if you're listening, you're welcome to Pie Before Dinner live with Dr. Liu. I am here with my guest, Dr. Pau Yu, professor of mathematics education at Grand Valley State University. We're here talking about mathematics, art, and justice and the state of things. We're just having a quick sound issue. Listen, if you're listening, just check for me and send me a message. Shelly saying you hear the echo. Yes, you still hear the echo, Shelly? Yes, a little. We'll just work on the echo real quick, and we'll stay on. So look, we've been talking a lot. I'm just going to mute you real quick, Paul. So we've been talking a lot about whether teachers should go back. Paul, is that you? Yeah. So we've just been talking about whether teachers should go back into the school system, and it's different, right? It's regional, it's provincial. What's happening in your neck of the woods? What are folks saying? What are folks saying in with regards to going back to school? What's your thoughts, and what do you think? I had one thought. We talk so much about wanting to go back to school, being online, giving kids access to computers. And when kids were in school, they had such difficulty getting access to computers. I just find it so interesting now that we're so interested in the access children have to computers and online learning and those kinds of things. And when we could do it more freely, we didn't. So it just gives me pause to think about this whole issue around COVID-19, the pandemic, and our children, and doing what's best for our children. I'm just skeptical, and I think I join a lot of teachers in thinking about being skeptical about that. So we're pivoting just a little bit as Paul was writing his audio system. What's your thoughts about the COVID pandemic, and should people go back to school? So just as we're starting talking about mathematics, art, and justice, we've asked the starter question: should schools open? Should schools open with teachers and students? I'm just going to type this, and I'll put it right across as a banner. Okay. So let me know what you think in the chat. Yeah, Natalie says many people are scared, right? Many people are scared. Who's Sandy? Who's Sandy? Okay. Hi, Sandy.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good. I'm hearing an echo.
Okay, hold on a second. Yeah. So we're just fixing, guys. We're just spending some time. We're working on an audio problem.
Is my echo back?
I can hear you, Paul. Question, ladies and gentlemen, can you hear Paul's echo? Go ahead, Paul. Just talk.
Is my echo back?
I can't hear it, but it's good. You're still echoing.
Boy.
Yeah.
How about if I leave the show and join back?
Okay.
Can I do that?
Yeah, let me take you out. All right, so I've taken you out of the show. So we're just talking about COVID-19 and should we go back to school? The question is, many people are scared. Anike says, well, what's the question? My question was, should schools open with teachers and students, Anike? We're just waiting for Brother Paul to come in. Just give us a quick second as we sort out some technical difficulty here. All right, so that happens, guys. Listen, that I can't tell you how much that happens across streams. Things go wrong, and you have to make a pivot. So we're just asking a question. Let me just take this.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Paul, I'm back. I'm added you to the screen. All right, so Anike, can you hear me?
I think I'm echoing.
Are you still echoing? You can hear it?
Right? Am I echoing, folks?
Yeah, someone is saying they still heard it echo. That's okay.
I don't know. Yeah.
All right, so that's okay. So we'll just go with that. Yeah, I can hear it. Yes. Something's very close to the mic, Paul. What did you do just now? All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're having some technical difficulty. Just give us 5 minutes. We'll come back to you after station identification. You're listening to Pie Before Dinner. We'll be right back. Testing. Testing. Paul, can you hear me? Hey, Paul, can you hear me? Let the show go on, Natalie says. Whew. All right, Natalie, you know how this is. We're just gonna pause for a second. We'll come back in a few seconds. Listen, don't leave, please. If you are listening, don't leave. Thank you for joining in Pie Before Dinner. This is our 15th episode. We're so lucky to have you a part of the broadcast. I am just going to.
How about now? Oh no, that's worse.
Yeah, are your AirPods on, Paul? Why don't you take your AirPods off and just use your laptop speaker and earphones? Are you laptop? Just try your laptop. Mic and your laptop earphones.
Okay, hear me?
I think I mistakenly gave people a link to the show. If you are backstage, ladies and gentlemen, this is only for guests. So you want to go to our Facebook group, Pie Before Dinner, and log on to the show there. Look at the show there. The backstage is really just for our guests. We have the transformer. Your transformer voice is what our guest is saying, Paul. So there could be some wireless phone interference or something like that. Natalie's saying we can deal with it. Okay, I'm going to come back on. The show must go on. I'm going to come back on because people want to see me. People want to see this show. Hey, everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. This is Pie Before Dinner. Natalie says, let the show go on. Well, my guest is having some trouble. I'm hoping that my guest will log back in as soon as he can, as soon as we get that sorted out. It's phenomenal guest too, Dr. Paul Yu out of the Grand Valley State University, talking to us about mathematics, art, culture, and justice. And so I just want to maybe extend some of the conversation just to the audience as we're talking. And my question was, I think this will resonate with audience, should schools open with teachers and students? Why or why not? Why or why not? Yeah. Sandy, yeah. Why not? Should schools open with for teachers or not? So, Janiza, I see you on the online. Are you going back to school? What's your thoughts about going back to school? What are some of the issues out there? I mean, should teachers just really like suck it up and go in for the economy's sake, or are there real pressing issues as to why we should really pause and hold? Is this regional? Is this a global space we should be in? Are we out of the woods? What's your take on it, educators, around schooling, going back to school in the midst of where we are right now? If it were tomorrow, would you go back? What would you need to go back? Would it be a month? Janiza says no, she doesn't think it's safe. And so we're asking the question, should schools open? What's your take on that? What's your district's position? I'm hearing in the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area, lots of different positions on making provision to start school. And I said start school. I didn't say open it up physically, but start school. Janice, your school starts Monday. Wow, I didn't realize that. So what's your plan if your school's starting on Monday? What's your plan if your school's starting on Monday? I think that's really interesting. Someone else says that their school is opening the first 3 weeks remotely, and then it's going to be reassessed, right? Okay, and being happy with that. I wouldn't go back if it were tomorrow, right? That's an interesting statement indeed. What I'm hearing in Virginia is this idea of, I find this idea interesting, parent choice. Parents having choice around, whether they want to go to school hybrid. Whether they want to go to school in person or go to school hybrid. Now, if you're not familiar with the term hybrid is a term that educators have been using in the online environment that speaks to face-to-face, right? Face-to-face instruction in a physical space, and or distance environment. That's on an online environment. So that's a hybrid environment. And so here in Maryland and Virginia and DC, people are talking about, I know in Virginia, in some jurisdictions close to here, are talking about giving people the choice of hybrid or the choice of going back to school. Although the choice of going back to school hasn't necessarily been all ironed out. It would mean less students. But if you give students and families the choice and also give teachers a choice, then there's an imbalance of numbers and matching and those kinds of things. Janiza says, when the teachers get sick, what then? Yeah. No, you're right. I know in DC, there was the district floated out the idea of the choice of hybrid and virtual, and got so much pushback. They said, well, we're not going to decide yet. We're going to wait to the end of the month. So I believe they're waiting to the end of end of July to decide, right? Yeah, I mean, this is the dilemma. I've never seen this in my lifetime. The idea of having to go to school with a pandemic. I mean, we're struggling with precautions like mask and hand washing now, right? A lot of the experts are saying that if we would just wear masks, if we would just practice good hand hygiene and 6 feet social distancing, at least we could wipe out this. We could really eradicate this pandemic as it's growing and spiking, in and out, at least the United States. So that's interesting as well, right? One Facebook user is saying that the our superintendent is basing the decision on whether or not there's a decrease in cases over a 4-week time period. Well, I like that. At least they're following the science, the tracking of cases. No, that's good. It's challenging, right? But it's an opportunity to pause and innovate. I want to come back to that, Monique, because you're bringing up a good point about pausing and innovation. I want to really come back to that. You're logged on as a participant. Hey, Paul, I know you're listening. Why don't you try again, Paul? Try to come in again and see. Let's try it one more time. Just try and come in again. Because I need you, Paul. You're the star of the show, man. You're gonna ask me to solo for another hour. Listen. So my guest is having a issue with the sound. If someone wants to join me on air right now, let's call our 15th episode as we talk COVID-19, as we talk mathematics and other issues. If someone wants to join me on the line, I'll appreciate it in the studio. Why don't you just send me a quick messenger note and I'll send you the link to the show. You can join me online. In fact, let me just copy the link and just send me a quick message. And I'll get you online. You know, the way you bring up a point. You know, there are a lot of logistics, and every single scenario has people seem to lose out. So if you go hybrid, right, you have some people in school, but the numbers may not match with teachers and support. And then even when I go to school and go home, and things change at home. When I leave the school environment, there are so many other factors. How do I ride the bus and all the support systems that go in and around school? There's so many questions, tough questions to answer. Paul's going to try again, another browser. Yeah, thanks, Paul. Yeah, try another browser that might work as well. Thanks, Monique. My guests are so, my audience members are so brilliant. They are always on it. Thank you very much. If you're listening to Pi Before Dinner. Thank you, Monique. Monique is a technical person. Now she say, maybe Paul can try on another device. Thank you, Monique. Weber says, yeah, it's the question is, should school open? It's too many questions, not enough answers. And not only is it not enough answers and so many questions, it sounds like sometimes we can't even trust the people who have been gifted to give us the answers, such as here we're dealing with President Trump, whose answers on a good day are inflammatory, sometimes outright ridiculous, and certainly seem to be science agnostic, right? And Dr. Fauci, which emerged as a voice of reasoning around the epidemic, at least here in the United States, has been kind of like pushed to the margins of the public, at least the public discourse, the public leadership discourse. And so, more questions. We have questions, right? Janisa says, are they waiving sick days, right? Will the kids and everyone exposed have to be quarantined? And who's paying for it? Listen, if you're following sports, the NBA and the NFL and baseball, they're talking about these bubbles, right? And soccer, football, talking about these bubbles. And they are struggling. And that's a smaller group of people. They're struggling with what happens when someone tests positive. What happens when someone leaves the bubble or goes outside the area and comes back into space? It's so many, many questions. And so we have to, I'm really amazed at teachers and teachers who are trying to still sort through these issues. If you've joined us again, you're listening to Pi Before Dinner. This is Talking Math and Other Things with Dr. Lou. This is our 15th episode. We were doing an episode on mathematics, art, and justice. We've just had some technical difficulties, and we're trying to get our guests back on. But until then, we're just talking about really one of the issues that came up earlier as we were talking with the guests, and that is, should schools open? There's a guest again. I'm going to try him again, guys. Just be patient with us. Thank you for being such a great community.
All right, does this work?
I hear you. I hear you loud and clear. Community, tell me what you hear.
Am I echoing?
I don't hear an echo, Paul. Let me just check.
I hear an echo on my end, I think.
Oh, you hear an echo on your end? So if you open the Facebook, listen, was your Facebook on and playing?
Should I close Facebook?
You should at least mute it, right? I have mine muted, so I don't put mine.
How about now?
Right. All right, we'll just give it a second. We'll let someone comment. Ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, so I actually am on a totally different computer.
Oh, okay. And again, it could also be the internet, but I don't hear anything. And guys, just give us a sound check.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Am I echoing?
Yeah, just give us a sound check. I'm just letting the audience weigh in here. Give us a sound check. Sound check. Sound check. Give us a sound check.
Yep. There's one more thing I can try is if I talk while I mute my my speakers. Let me try this.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, what about now? I can't hear you, but as I'm talking right now, am I echoing? Testing 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me, and am I echoing?
What speaker are you muting, Paul?
I was muted, like what's coming out at me.
Okay. Yes, it came back. Keep talking, please. All right, they want us to keep talking, Paul. So we're gonna have to just muscle our way through this space. All I can tell you, Paul, are you using a laptop right now?
Yeah.
You have external speakers connected to it?
No.
Oh, this is just regular speakers coming out of the laptop. Okay,
Right.
Great. So look, Paul, we're going to just continue and muscle on. Hey, guys, if you're with me, I have Pau Yu, Professor of Mathematics, Education, Grand Valley State. Let's try this again. You. Hey, Paul, so look, man, let me just get right into it. You and I have talked a lot. You've talked about, thank you for sharing about your wife's reservations about going back to school. At least it prompted some conversation with us in the group. This pandemic, you've been pretty vocal around your own audience and community and how you've been interacting with people around not just the pandemic, but Black Lives Matter, right?
Yeah.
What have you been learning in the space? What are your takeaways and reactions and stances, I guess, coming out of the Black Lives Matter movement space and its impact on you as an Asian man in mathematics?
So I think there's two things that I'm really reflecting on. First is really thinking about, as an Asian American, kind of my interactions with other people of color, and in particular the Black culture, right?
Hey, Paul, just turn down your mic a little bit on your thing, okay? Just turn down your mic. Yeah.
Turn it down?
Yeah, just turn it down a little bit.
Okay, let me try. Let me go to my preferences.
Yeah, welcome to the world. Listen, they forced us online, and this is what you get, folks. When you ask people to be online 24/7, this is, we don't have high-powered computers. This is what happens.
Okay, so is this better?
Yeah, a little better for me, but we'll see. We'll see what the audience says. I'm just reading some of the comments. So go ahead. You were saying something about, Asian culture. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think part of it is, on one hand, I'm responding to this as a person of color. So, for example, the whole China virus issue, like that phrase, that has had direct impact on me and other Asian people. That the politicization, the use of that term China virus. One day I was walking, I was at a gas station looking at my phone, trying to get a signal, and some guy, and I'm wearing my mask, out of town, so they don't know me. And some guy looked right at me like, thank you, sarcastically, right? Yeah. Where'd that come from? And this happened to actually, people I'm related to and friends that are Asian. So there's kind of this response back as there's on the coronavirus. So I'm processing racism in America as an Asian, but at the same time realizing that I have a different historical narrative as an Asian in America. So the way Asians relate to white culture, but also how Asians relate to Black culture, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Paul, stay there for a second, because many in our audience, listen, I get to talk a lot about Black culture and with and around Black folk and Black people, and I get to talk a lot to white people about that, right?
Yeah.
A lot of our audience, I don't often get to talk about Black culture, Asian culture, and the interactions and interplay between in and around that word people of color. It's a very it's an unspoken, uneasy space, right? So so let's open up that some more. Tell us about the different interplays between Asian white, Asian Black, like that come into play for you.
I'll tell you what. Before I tell you another story, talk about that tension. So when I graduated from college, right, I was 22 years, it was 1992, and I got a job as a line cook at a restaurant, kind of like an Applebee's, like an Olive Garden, kind of a fast food restaurant. And when I was back there, I was the only Asian, but the rest of the cooks were either Black or Hispanic. But all the servers up front were white, right?
Yeah.
Now, I just graduated from college. It was the summer between my college graduate and when I got my first teaching job. So it was 3 months. I needed to pay bills. I actually went in to interview to be a server, a waiter, and I didn't get hired, but they said, well, you can cook. I'm like, all right, whatever, if it pays bills. So I'm back there. Most of the people in the back room cooking the meal for this particular restaurant, maybe a high school education, right? So they weren't college students, they weren't college graduates. And what was interesting is, like, I did a lunch shift with these cooks. These cooks, to pay the bill, then go to another restaurant like an Olive Garden and do the dinner shift. So it was really kind of interesting watching their culture. So anyway, one day, I say to this one cook, I'm going to just call him Jay, Jimmy J, right? And he was Black.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, Jimmy J, I got a question. He's like, what?
I knew when you said Jimmy J, he was Black, though.
Yeah. I said, Jimmy J, I got a question. I said, hey, so I noticed that when I walk down the street in Champaign-Urbana, because I went to the University of Illinois for my undergrad, and if I'm walking down the street, I'll see coming in the opposite direction like a Black guy, right? And we'll kind of catch eye contact just out of a peripheral vision and just kind of give a heads up, right?
Yeah.
As we pass, we don't say hello. We don't stop and talk. I don't even know the guy. We just kind of, not even eye contact, just kind of this recognition and a little heads up as we walk by. It just kind of happened. And I said, what is a Black person's perception of me, an Asian? Right? And here's what he said. He said, Paul, there's two colors. There's white and there's not white. You're not white.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
And I would say as a 22-year-old in 1992, and I also, for any white viewers and my white friends, I don't want this to come off as like reverse racism, because that often enters the conversation, right? For me, it's a recognition of the concept of white privilege before it was a cultural and academic construct, right? This idea that, hey, we are people of color and so we have a different experience in America, right?
Yeah.
This is backdrop by me graduating, studying under Dr. Stephen Tozer, who is, I believe, now the chair of the Curriculum and Instruction Department at University of Illinois Chicago. But he was my educational policy study, and that's when he opened my eyes to the idea of ideological hegemony. So I kind of had this academic study, but then I had this conversation with my Black cohort. And at that point, I think that's when I began to adopt what I call a people of color lens. And so the second thing I would add to this conversation, and I've been telling this second story a lot as well, is when I engage in issues that happen in society, I have 4 lenses through which I can view this, right? So my primary lens is a white lens. So I don't speak Korean, even though I'm second generation here, because when I was a kid, you just learned English in the area that I lived in, right? And my parents they made a choice not to speak Korean to me, right? And I grew up in a predominantly white area. My wife, she's white. I identify with that culture. And so I don't criticize it, I just identify with it. And I would say that is kind of my primary lens, almost like I forget that I'm Asian, right? My second lens is, on the other extreme, is as a Korean, right? So when something happens in Korea, even though I've never been there and I don't speak the language, that creates a response, an emotional, cognitive, and academic response that for you, a Bermudan, you're like, hey, it's just Korea. I'm like, yeah, I know it's just Korea, but I'm Korean, right? So I've got this Korean lens. You know, I also have an Asian lens and a people of color lens. The people of color lens is this common narrative when I talk to some of my Black friends or my Hispanic, Latino friends or other Asian friends. And it's just kind of like, oh, does this happen to you too, right? Or wow, I know what you're talking about. So I've got these multiple lenses through which I engage issues.
Wow, no, that's it's complex. It's complex. And you know what? And I like that word, complex, right? And
yeah,
you know, we try to. That's a saying that one's identity is complex is very different from saying one has no color or that I don't see color, right?
Right.
I think the biggest offense for probably all of us is this idea of not seeing people who don't see color. They're saying that they don't see me, or rather that they'd rather see me through their lens and their lens only, such that there is no other lens.
Right.
And it can be dangerous if that lens is white, because Black people, and I don't want to speak for others, but I know Black people, at least, you know, I can say this pretty confidently, know that when white people feel uncomfortable and see things through their lens, bad things tend to happen to other people. Right. And so, yeah, that's so powerful. So tell me, how does that, you know, I have a very uneasy view of people of color. I actually don't like the term. I think the term privileges whiteness, right? It privileges whiteness as the standard bearer. It says either non-color is a thing, right? And because of the way people of color have been positioned in the narrative, it presents non-color as the standard, you know, and so like my organization, I've been pushing it back. My organization would say people of color, so white people, and I just get it loses, and also the third thing, I'll let you jump in. The third thing, it doesn't speak to your complexity and mine, right? It gets lost in the complexities of being Korean and Asian, being Korean and minoritized in some way, shape, and form. But then when it comes to mathematics, educational achievement, Asian don't tend to be minoritized in the same way, shape, and form. In some ways, yes. But I'm saying there are different ways the math narrative gets exploited. People against people. So I don't know. We lose something for me when we lump this people of color thing. I've been recently just pushing back against it, at least in my communities. Yeah. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, so for me, it's a functional term in this way. When I told you the story about me wearing the mask and some person saying to me thank you in a derogatory way, right? Mm-hmm. That resonates with you, not because you're Asian, but because you have experienced that in some other way.
That's right. That's right. Even when you said the Korean,
I don't have to explain it to you.
Yeah, even when you said the Korean thing, you didn't have to, because I'm Bermudian, right? And so, so people don't understand. So it's just something that goes over my head. It's this Bermudian world, this Bermudian centric space that I find myself in at times, where it means something to me more so than it might mean someone else.
So when I say to tell you that story, if I tell that story to my Latinx friends, they get it.
Yeah, dude.
But when I tell that story to my white friend, there's always this pushback. And here's the pushback. Well, how do you know they were talking to you?
Yeah.
How do you know that's what they mean? And then I've got to kind of explain, it's like, look, I'm 51 years old. I know that I'm marginalized in society, right? And so I use that term, people as color, as we share this common narrative. I go back to Jimmy J. Look, there's white and there's not white. And again, I don't mean it in a divisive way, like, hey, you're white and you're not white and you're separate. It's like, no, it's like when you share, like I remember, here's a story you told me that was like, I don't know if you remember this, but we had a conversation about race.
Wow.
And you told me the story, you said, Paul, when I get pulled over by the police, I put 2 hands on my wheel and I look out the window and I say, sir, I'm going to reach into my pocket to get out my wallet.
Yeah.
And I do it very good. And you told me this story and I was blown away by it.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't even remember when I told you. When did I tell you that?
But then I was also like, but I get it.
When was this, Paul? When did I tell you?
In graduate school.
So, ladies and gentlemen, just for context, that was 18 years ago.
Yes.
More than maybe that was 18 years ago. So imagine now, Paul. I can't even think about now.
Right.
I can't even think about now. Now it's like I wouldn't even want to move. I'm putting my hands outside the I'm just like I don't want to think about it now. You know. Yeah. So, this COVID-19 has exposed it's revealed. It's unveiled our identities, our complex identities, even more so to the world. I mean, even the ethnic part of that about being Korean, right? Because this U.S. Korean space, Western Korean space, North Korean space, is so tenuous that even there's so many intersections now that are unraveling in the same space. Shelley's saying, you said a lot. I agree. Complex. Shelley's saying the same thing.
So when I say people of color, I don't mean it in kind of the homogenous, monolith term. I think I just mean it in that we get each other.
Yeah,
right?
You know what? Let's back up, Paul. Let's back up. When you say people of color, it's one thing. When a white person steeped in who is experienced in white culture and may not have a lot of experiences with others, it says people of color, it means something else. Because it's a way of, it sometimes can be a way of speaking to difference in a way that I don't have to go into deeply. When you're saying it's a way of speaking in solidarity.
Correct.
Right. I get that. No, I get what you're saying. It's like me saying Caribbean. You know, I say Caribbean because I'm Caribbean, but you can't go to Bermuda and just lump everybody in front of Caribbean in one boat. That's 32 nations, right? That's,
So I want to tell you 2 stories as a college professor as I unravel racism within myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I teach at a predominantly white institution. I'm Asian, but I identify very strongly with white culture. And so one day I was sitting in the office with a student, a black student, female, she was in my math class. And I just said, hey, how are you doing at Grand Valley? And she says, good. I said, can I ask you a question? I said, what's it like being a black student at Grand Valley? I don't want to, I think I just asked it something like that. What's it like being a black student or somehow close to that? I don't know if I directly asked her, but she said this. She said, well, I feel like that the number of black students was misrepresented, so that when I got the literature, the marketing literature, it's very multi-ethnic in the picture, but when I got here, everybody's white. Now, around this time that I was having this conversation, with a black, one of my black colleagues, and she was a full professor, and she made this observation. This was like in the early 2000s. She says, hey, and there's a group of white people, me, her, and a group of white people. And she says, why am I the only one being asked to have photo shoot, right? Because they want to get people of color faculty in these photo shoots. And then it kind of has an implication is he's going to these photo shoots, he's going to these photo shoots. So it's cutting into her teaching research time, right? Where it's not right. So this is all kind of sitting in my head. So here's what the student says. I say this is the context to when the student says this. And I kind of feel like I'm on board with the, hey, I kind of track what you're going as an Asian professor. And she says, here's what bothers me. I'll have professors come up to me and say, you know what? You're actually a good writer. Or, you know what? You're a good writer. Now, there's two ways to say it. There's, you know what? You're a good writer.
Yeah.
Like, you're a good writer. Or there's, you know what? You're a good writer. And he knows what that meant. Like, I'm surprised because of your rate that you're a good writer. Right?
Wow.
And I thought to myself,
and who was saying this to you?
The student was saying this to me.
No, Paul, stop there, Paul, stop there.
Okay.
This is the student talking to a man who has a PhD in mathematics education, and the student feels empowered enough, at least culturally, right, or from a privileged space, feels empowered enough to question or challenge in a way, or to validate your writing capability. That's a powerful space in and of itself.
Yeah, or you're saying that about herself, though, right? Did you catch that?
Sorry, say it again.
The student was saying that about herself. Right? So that she was reflecting that students would come, like the professors would come up to her, like hand a paper back to her and say, you know what, you're a really good writer.
Oh, okay, got you.
Does that make sense?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Kind of like the professor saying to this black student,
I went off on a tangent.
I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah, I went off. I go off sometimes like that. I went off.
Okay, right? Yeah. So kind of this idea, you know, I wasn't expecting that, but you're actually a good writer.
Yeah.
Kind of communicating to me, why would they have any preconceived notion whether or not I was a good writer or a bad writer, right?
Yeah.
And then I thought to myself at that moment, do I do that with my black students when they sit in my math class?
Whoa.
Do I have a preconceived bias or notion? Wow. And at that point is when I made it in my point to remove, like we all say we don't do it, right? And maybe some people don't do it. But I do know that when you're researching a paper, like you get to a point where, okay, this student's a good student, you know, something like that, you know, when you're grading objectively. That's just the nature of objective grading. And we make these value judgments. And so now I really kind of keep track of that.
Yeah.
Right?
Hey, listen. Thanks a lot. You're listening to PiBeforeDinner.com. Pie Before Dinner, Talking Math with Dr. Lou. You can reach us at PiBeforeDinner.com/live. But listen, I don't know if you've noticed, ladies and gentlemen, we have a new Facebook page, Pie Before Dinner. I created the page just as a broadcast page to make it easier for people to listen to the show. So we're actually broadcasting simply at Pie Before Dinner. So Facebook Live at Pie Before Dinner. And so you can just go on the Facebook page and like it if you like. Please give me at least one like on the page. But thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part. Listen, we have Pau Yu, Dr. Pau Yu, Grand Valley State University, and we've pivoted. We're talking really about mathematics and identity, justice and culture in the space. And this is what this show is all about. We're getting out things, Paul, on this show that there are not a lot of public spaces for this to talk about. We can talk about math games and math resources, but we don't often talk about the nitty-gritty of what it's like. Paul, you said something. I want to go back to the messages we say to people. And what I hear you saying and what I hear you being vulnerable about, which I really appreciate, is this COVID experience, or even now as you're evolving, you are yourself unraveling the complexities of your identity.
Yeah.
And it's not something that should just happen when we're young, right? It happens as we it happens throughout our entire lives. We're unraveling our identity. We're always learning about who we are. And if there's a message to my parents out there, if there's a message to my fellow educators, if there's a message to people out here listening, you are not any one thing, period. And even if this is math and your child never did anything in math, your mama didn't do anything in math, your daddy didn't do anything in math, you are not one thing. And even now, even if you sucked at math or missed every opportunity in the world at anything, you can still pivot, right? And this COVID-19 has shown us that, hey, we can pivot.
Right.
And parents are pivoting at home. Teachers are pivoting. And we're going to have to pivot some more and pivot some more. So I like that. I want to go back, Paul, because we were in school. And I didn't remember that I told you that story, but there's so many interesting things. There was a white professor that I had. Two things I want to tell you about at being in school with you that I experienced, really fundamental things that shook me as a mathematics person, mathematics educator, a mathematician in the space. There was an educator. I don't want to say his name because if I say this name, every math person listening, a math educator, math professional listening, will know who they are. But this was a famous white male mathematics educator, and I was just coming my first year into the PhD program, one of my first classes, and we were writing. And I came to get a PhD because I was walking the halls of my high school, and I was so frustrated because I was living in the hood, and I was teaching. And my relationship with the kids in the hood was powerful and different from my relationship when they got to school. It's like school put us in a different relationship. And I was walking the halls and saying, there has to be a better way than this. And so Shelly is saying, be careful. Shelly, I didn't want to tell the story. And so I came to Illinois State, Paul, to answer that question. There has to be a better way of looking at math, a better way than this, than to simply just teach in this disconnected space and way. And so this professor, one of my first writings, and I was never a bad writer, I didn't think. And so I was writing, and he says to me something that was coded, and he says, as I'm writing about my experiences in mathematics, great job, try not to embellish so much. Mm-hmm. And he didn't say it to any other student. And it really shook me because that's all I do now is embellish. Because, hey, yo, I'm an embellisher, man. This is the embellishment show with Dr. Lou. No, but he was basically saying, keep the emotion out of it, right? Keep the passion out of it. And I've been on a journey and challenged the field and challenging my own space to find ways to put our passion and our emotion and our cultural nuances back into a space that wasn't designed to receive it. Mm-hmm. And so that's one thing. The other thing that happened to me was there was a colleague friend of ours, I'm not gonna say names, who said in class to me, I was just, because I remember why I come to get my PhD, she said, why are you always talking about culture? And said it to me in front of the entire class. And it stopped me for a second, right? But, I had to give an account for, why is it that you're always talking about black children and mathematics and this and that? And now we come full circle where we haven't talked about enough. And I'll stop talking about it when people keep talking about it more. Yeah. But so that's my experiences. Did you have any of those kinds of experiences when you were going through the mathematics pipeline?
No. So here's the thing. So now we're really going to get real. Okay. Let's talk about being Asian and being black. So one of the things I want to say that I've been reflecting on recently, this is a brand new personal thought I'm going to throw out there, is when I look at, I am blown away by the history that is not taught, not just slavery, but about black people in America. Like, I'm sure you're familiar with the Red Summer of 1919, right? Mm-hmm. So for those of you that aren't, and I put it on my Facebook, basically what happened in the summer of 1919, right after the Spanish flu, where these American GIs came back from serving overseas. And what had happened is all their factory jobs were taken up by Black people that had moved from the South to the North, right? And quote unquote, the Great Migration is what they called it.
Yeah.
And so what happened for the next year was this intense white on Black violence. We're talking Black businesses that were shattered, lynchings, communities literally burned. These weren't like KKK type things. These were actually led primarily by white American GIs. So when I'm reading this, I'm like, I can't believe this. And then you read, as I kind of keep unraveling the systemic legalized racism up through civil rights, and then what happened, I realized that myself as an Asian, I have a different narrative in the United States.
Yeah.
Two implications to that. Number one, my parents moved here with a pretty large group of Asians from India and Korea in the late 60s, early 70s. And actually, my father-in-law from England, who also came here as an engineer, the phrase that he used was the Great Brain Drain, right? So in the 60s and the 70s, essentially the United States was inviting immigrants from Asia and all over that had college degrees, right? So right off the bat, I entered the United States cultural framework from a position as a minority, with a privileged minority, right? So two things happen. Number one, I do not have the shared narrative between Black and white that have extends all the way back for centuries, right? The second issue is that I am now also interacting with Black and white culture and what type of narrative.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I thought was interesting was, and my Asian friends can correct me, the N-word, I never recalled my parents ever using it, right?
Right.
And I think it sounded funny. It's like that word is part of my historical cultural narrative in the way that I believe it is for the Black culture and the white culture historically, right? So for me, I'm really, that's where I'm at right now, is kind of parceling out then kind of my position as a faculty member in mathematics education, teaching it at a predominantly white institution, but that's doing research with underrepresented minorities and Black students. And how does all of this kind of impact that?
Yeah, and what's interesting is that I find that in mathematics, and we have to acknowledge this, and so that's why these people of color has to be opened up in our math space, because one of the first things I learned in mathematics was that this study about Black children in the cafeteria. Why are the Black students sitting in the cafeteria? There was some famous research in the 1980s around that Black students were sitting in the cafeteria, and while some Asian students were studying in study groups in calculus. And what it did was that narrative attempted to pit Black culture, because remember, that was the beginning of exploring culture. So the pushback was it painted Black culture as a negative deficit space, right? And so people, began like, Black folk, you need to do some study groups, and so it pit Black culture against Asian culture, and that's a way. And Asian culture became the favorite narrative in mathematics. In fact, it's not the only part too. Remember Tim's. Tim's. You've probably heard a lot about Tim's, right? We've studied Tim's. We studied the yin yang out of Tim's. Yeah. Tim's 94, 99, that repeats all of the studies, and so these international studies. And one of these, what these studies found was that, certain Asian countries, right, were, was it Japan in the Tim study? Their experience with problem solving, they were outshining, Western countries, and so it looked at what they were doing and their experience with problem solving, and it became this privileged space, right? Let's look at these countries. And it was only interesting because it was only certain Asian countries. It's not, some Asian countries you don't hear about at all, right? You don't hear about Bangladesh. You don't hear about certain countries you just don't hear about. But sorry.
Back then, in that report.
Back then, yes. But even now, right? Even now, let's think about ethnicity. The Caribbean. You almost never hear about the Caribbean as or an African nations in the space of international math reform. We pick Finland, we pick some other countries. And so I'm just always aware of how people use culture and color to position who can and who can't do in the world, and who can and can't do math. Well, let's talk about this. When I say this, audience, you finish the sentence. When I say that's good old German.
Oh, engineering.
Yeah. Or we look at the Swiss army knife, and this,
right.
the way, and so we even talk about other countries, whole countries, right, and attribute quality to an entire country's space, and so people in math are being otherized not only by race, not only by race, but even by ethnicity, right? In talking about who they are. And so that's an interesting point. I just want to raise that about that. This is Dr. Lou, Pie Before Dinner. I'm here with Dr. Pau Yu. We're going over time. Paul, if you don't mind, we'll go for like 10 more minutes. That's
sure.
All right. So look, Paul, in your work, right? Let's switch to your work. I know we didn't have time to talk a lot about this, and we'll have to have you back on the show to just talk about art. But since I've known you, you have talked about art. I mean, visual arts and mathematics. And you talked about it early, 18, 20 years ago, early when this thing wasn't even a thing, right?
Right.
It wasn't even a thing. Paul, we were talking about fractions and functions, and Paul wanted to talk about art, like art.
Yeah.
Paul, we're just learning how to use our email, man. We just want to have America Online, Paul, and Yahoo. And Paul wants to talk about visual art. So, Paul, you've been on this animal about art and mathematics and art and culture. Where are you now? Like, how are you evolving, and what have you come to in this space?
I think the big thing is now extracting how artists think in the math and bringing it into the mathematics classroom. And I think postmodernism and I think kind of the current paradigm of how people think about teaching and education, it's where the conversation is going. So 2 projects that I'm involved in is one is STEAM education, right? Science, technology, engineering, art, and math. So I'm working with a STEM middle school launch that we're working on. It's with a huge grant by the Kellogg Foundation. It's a group of Grand Valley teachers. Even then, it's supported by culturally sustainable pedagogy and design thinking, right? So then, design thinking also has this creative, empathetic focus on the person element, right? And within both of these paradigms, kind of thinking outside of the traditional linear Western culture way of thinking, versus, as well as design thinking, a phrase that's come up as we're working with the teachers, and I know you'll recognize this phrase. This is a phrase that actually Norma Presnick gave me, right? Back in the day, and it's also revolutionized how I think about it. It's this idea of divergent thinking, right? And so here's my connection from math and art is this. So in a traditional mathematics curriculum, there's a problem, and there's one solution, and traditionally there's one strategy of getting there, right? So that's how you and I were taught, this very convergent thinking, and that's what Norma had kind of identified. And then I think we've evolved to, you have a problem, you have one solution, but you at least have multiple paths, multiple strategies to get there. But it still converges on one solution, but at least we're recognizing the multiple strategies, right? And I think that's where we've evolved to. I think the next step, and I think where I'm trying to, I think where math education is trying to be pushed, I think where culturally sustaining and design thinking, I think we're pushing this, is where you have a problem, and this is divergent, as Norma would say, but from that one problem, you would have multiple solutions. right?
Wow,
An infinite number of
that's right.
solutions.
But then that's the power of a culturally relevant problem. It's culturally sustained task as well, right? And that is, it has the ability to open up so many different fields when you connect it to human. If you connect a problem to a human experience, that's a really simple way to get to this divergent space.
Yeah.
Hey,
Now, here's the interesting thing, though. As I sit here and we're talking to math teachers, and I talk about this idea of, hey, you have one problem and you have multiple infinite solutions. To a math teacher, we're like, how do you write those questions? What does that even look like? But to an artist, right, as an artist, when you walk into an art class and the professor says to you, your task is to make a mug. That's the problem. Look, right off the bat, it's not even implicit, it's explicit to it is, look, there's no such thing as a right way to do a mug, right? There's like an infinite way. So in the art, they naturally diverge. And that's the whole point of being artist, is this expression through original thought. But at the same time, mathematics is about expression through original thought and looking at divergent possibilities. And so for me, it's trying to use the way artists work divergently in the mathematics classroom space. And that's kind of...
No, look, Paul, thanks. Paul, this is great. Can we, Paul, let me just say thank you, audience, to being a part of this. Thank you for bearing with us through our technical issues. We really appreciate that. And that's my doorbell going on. But there's always a technical difficulty. Thank you for being a part of this, guys. We really appreciate you being a part. Listen, Paul, can you come back and we can talk more about art and go more into the art space? I just had so much fun with you today, talking about identity and ethnicity and listening to your stories and you listening to mine and really, really, really pulling out more of our complexities or who we are in the field, right? In mathematics. And I love that, man, and I appreciate that. I just tell your wife I said hello, thank you. I still remember that Po Doggy, was it? The Po Doggy we had? Po Doggy. So I'm so grateful for that. So that was interesting. Remember the time we got sick that time as well?
Yeah.
Woo!
My daughter Maya gave you guys the flu.
Yeah, I thought I was gonna die, bro. Let me tell you, that thing was. I think I had to go to the emergency because I was so dehydrated after that. But that ripped through us. Well, Paul, look, good times. We miss you, man. We're gonna have to get together, have this reunion. Thanks for being a part of Pie Before Dinner, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to Pie Before Dinner. Thank you for being a part of the audience. We'll see you again next week as we focus on more interesting topics. Thanks, Paul. Thanks for being a part.
Sorry about the technology. We'll figure it out.
That's not a thing, man. That's okay. Talk to you later. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.